and my parents let my golden brother and his family move in for free while I pay them rent, but I move out in secret and tell them to enjoy the freeloaders all my life. I have wondered why my parents can't love me the same way they love my brother, and now I think I no longer want to know the reason. My name is Mason, and I am 22 years old. Like many young people my age, I dream of being successful. I have a passion for software design and have been studying a degree in the same field. I also work part-time as a software developer, and most of what I earn I save to start my own company. That's why I still live with my parents. Since the university is close to my parents' house, I save on transportation costs and other expenses, but I'm not living at their expense every month. I pay them $50 as my share of rent and other household expenses, so my life was going quite well. And I thought that in a few more years I would be close to achieving my dream. However, everything started to fall apart when my brother, who is 23 years old, along with his entire family, decided to move in with us. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but he has also been a real problem since we were children. Despite all that, he was always my parents' favorite from a very young age. He had an ability to get into one mess after another. Whether it was breaking curfew, skipping classes, or getting into fights at school, Cam always found a way to cause chaos at every step. However, despite all this mess, my parents always had a weakness for him. No matter how bad things got, they always forgave him quickly while I was left wondering what I had to do to earn the same kind of unconditional support. He always found a way to avoid the consequences of his actions, and somehow everything ended up falling on me. Whether it was breaking something valuable or getting into trouble at school, it was always me who ended up cleaning up behind him. Cam got married when his girlfriend found out she was pregnant. Everything happened so fast. 1 minute he was talking about wild parties and late nights out, and the next he was moving in with her family and preparing to be a father. My parents were there for him every step of the way, supporting him both emotionally and financially. They even helped him and his wife establish their own place, hoping that a fresh start would lead him to take responsibility. A year ago, Cam and his family moved out, taking a generous sum from both our parents and his wife's family to start a business. And now with his return, things have only gotten worse. Cam claims that his business is thriving. He brags about having secured contracts with big companies in the construction industry, acting like he's some kind of magnate. He says he's just waiting for a $2 million payment to come through, exaggerating his success even more every time he tells it. I found it hard to believe given his track record of responsibility, but my parents were quick to believe his story, listening to him with wide eyes as if he was giving a TED talk. They would sit there nodding with admiration while he told his supposed adventures. Meanwhile, I watched from the background, feeling like a ghost in my own house. When Cam announced that he had sold his house to invest in a big contract, I almost choked on dinner. And of course, once the money comes in, he plans to buy a mansion in the richest suburb of New York, saying that our whole family should move with him. My parents are ecstatic, talking about how this is finally the big breakthrough they always knew Cam would achieve. They're over the moon, ready to follow him into this new chapter, oblivious to the potential pitfalls that might be coming. Meanwhile, I wonder if this supposed success isn't just another one of Cam's schemes, another opportunity to escape responsibility while dragging everyone else with him while Cam waits for his bonanza. He and his family contribute nothing to the household. They don't pay rent, they don't help with groceries, and they've practically taken over the house. His 2 children, whom I love because they are children and aren't to blame for what the adults do, add to the chaos. The house is always noisy, messy, and very far from the quiet environment. I need to focus on my studies and work. In fact, I remember walking into the living room one day, dodging toys scattered on the floor, and feeling like I was entering a war zone instead of my house. Before, I appreciated the quiet moments when I could sit and program, but now those moments seem like a distant memory. It's like my sanctuary has been stripped away and replaced with chaos and disorder. The worst part is that Cam and his wife seem to think they can give me orders, asking me to run errands, but never offering to pay for anything. I feel like a servant living in the house instead of a brother or even a son. They've taken over the kitchen, leaving their mess for me to clean up, and their children run around everywhere, interrupting my attempts to concentrate. It's frustrating and exhausting having to deal with their constant demands when I'm striving to be a responsible person and support myself. It would have been bearable until last week when Mom came into my room. At first, she started talking about how household expenses have increased. Now that Cam moved in with his family, from bills to food, everything is costing more. Deep down, I knew what she was going to say, but I didn't imagine she would actually tell me. She asked me to pay more for what I already pay. When I asked her if she had asked Cam the same thing, if he was going to start paying rent, she simply got upset and left the room. The next day during breakfast, Dad told me the same thing while getting up from the table without giving me a chance to protest. I looked at my brother, who looked back at me with shame, and then continued eating. The next night after work, I went straight to talk to my mom. I told her that I was barely earning enough and that I couldn't pay more than what I was already paying. Since then, both my mom and dad have stopped talking to me. They're giving me the cold shoulder as if I were a freeloader or something. You know what hurts the most, seeing how my parents treat him versus how they treat me. Cam gets away with everything, and despite that, they never hold him accountable for anything. Meanwhile, I'm paying rent, working hard in college, and saving for my future, but it seems like none of that matters. I don't want to say it, but sometimes I feel like my efforts are invisible to them, as if no matter what I do, it's never enough in their eyes. I used to think that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough, that if I just achieved more, they would finally see me. But now, after years waiting for that approval, I realize that maybe it will never come. I've tried to talk to my parents, but every conversation ends with them changing the subject or simply ignoring me completely. They're so wrapped up in Cam's big plans and his promises of a big house and a luxurious life that they don't see what's happening right in front of them. They don't see how much it hurts to be overlooked, how difficult it is to work so hard and still feel like you're not enough. The worst part is that even though Cam is older, he acts like I'm the one who owes him something. He doesn't lift a finger to help around the house, leaving me to assume additional responsibilities. Without any recognition, I've also thought about moving out, but that would cost even more. And right now, my financial situation doesn't allow it. Update 1. I am. Update 1. Mason. Again, I wanted to update you on my situation since my last post received many comments. I really appreciate the support and suggestions. I really appreciate hearing your opinions, even those who didn't agree with me. Many mentioned that I should just move out, but honestly, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still finishing college and saving for my future. And the idea of paying rent and bills alone stresses me out because I couldn't cover everything now. Not only the house, but also my room has become a living zoo. I can't even explain how intrusive my brother's family has been. For example, the other day, I walked into my room and found my niece's bed set up in a corner without warning, without asking my permission. Just a bed placed in my space. I understand that children need a place to sleep, but I didn't sign up to be their babysitter or for my room to become their little makeshift playroom. When I confronted Cam about it, he just shrugged, saying it was easier for everyone, easier for whom? For me, and it gets even crazier. Yesterday, I found Cam's wife rummaging through my things. I walked in and caught her going through my desk drawer. What's wrong with her? I felt violated, as if they were invading my personal space. When I asked her why she was doing that, she just smiled and said she was looking for a pen. A pen? Seriously, there's a whole house full of pens, including a desk downstairs, and she couldn't just ask me for one. It was outrageous. Plus, weird, I didn't want to explode over something that seemed trivial, but it felt like they were treating my space and my room as if it were a common area. That night, I tried to rest after a long day of classes and work, hoping for some peace. But as soon as I sat down to start studying, the kids burst into my room, dragging their toys with them. I love them, but I need to focus on my studies. I had to explain to them that my room was off limits, but it was like talking to a wall. They didn't understand, and Cam didn't even intervene. Instead, he just laughed as if it wasn't a big deal. It frustrated me so much that my brother didn't even set boundaries for his children. The last straw was when I heard Cam talking to our parents. I thought I could trust them, but I heard him say that I needed to be more supportive of the family in these difficult times. That's when I realized they had been talking about my savings behind my back. I've been diligently saving for my future company, and hearing him say that made my blood boil. He had the audacity to suggest that I should give him my hard-earned savings because, quote, I don't know what he saves so much for. If he could be contributing that money for the family, what the hell? When I confronted him about it, he looked at me as if I were the selfish one. He argued that with the extra expenses from having them living here, it was my duty to help. I couldn't believe it. I've been working hard to save money for my future. And now, he expects me to simply hand it over because he made decisions that led him to need help. It seemed incredibly unfair to me. I refused to let him make me feel guilty about giving up my dreams. At that moment, I realized I needed to set serious boundaries. I'm not responsible for his decisions or his financial problems. I've spent years focusing on my own path, and I'm not going to allow them to derail my plans just because they think I owe them something. So I took a deep breath and told Cam that I couldn't help financially and that he should respect my space and privacy. I hope this leads to a better understanding, but it's hard to say if it will change anything for now. I'm standing firm in my decisions and prioritizing my goals, even if that means facing more drama with my family anyway. Thanks again for the support. I'll be back if all this gets resolved. And there's something more to tell about my brother and the rest of the family. Update 2. Update 2. I wish I had better news, but things have gotten worse. And if you thought everything was already complicated before now, they've reached a level I didn't even think was possible. After my last update, the emotional manipulation from my parents went from being bad to absolutely unbearable. It was no longer just about paying a little more here and there now. They openly expected me to hand over my savings. Apparently, the money my brother was supposed to get kept not showing up, and every day they found new ways to corner me about helping the family. My mom repeated like a mantra that family helps family. Everything revolved around Cam. Always, the constant emotional blackmail was exhausting. And then the real bomb dropped a few days ago. My parents received a call from my brother-in-law. I was in my room trying to block out the usual noise from Cam's children when I heard raised voices. At first, I couldn't understand much, but the conversation quickly escalated. My mom was pacing around the house and sounded, well, devastated. I went downstairs to see what was happening, and that's when I learned the truth, the whole truth about my brother. It turns out that Cam had lost everything a long time ago. That big shipment he said was going to pay him millions was a lie. He had actually invested all his money in a shady company months ago, and they had completely scammed him. The whole story about waiting for a payment was nothing more than that, a made-up story. But that's not all he had been living with. His in-laws for months taking advantage of them. When they finally got tired of it, they kicked him and his family out. That's when he showed up at our house telling more lies about his supposed success. I couldn't believe it. I mean, part of me always suspected that his big business was too good to be true, but I never thought he would go so far. Cam literally moved in with us because he had nowhere to go, and instead of admitting it, he kept lying, dragging everyone, including me, into his disaster. I thought my parents would be furious when they found out. I expected some kind of confrontation, maybe even that they would finally see through all the excuses Cam had been making, but instead, they were devastated in a way I didn't anticipate. Instead of making Cam responsible for his actions, they turned to me suddenly. The conversation wasn't about how Cam had ruined everything. It was about how I needed to step up and save the family. My dad sat me down after the call and made it clear, "Your brother is in trouble, Mason. This is the moment when you have to step in and help. You've been saving for years, and it's your turn to give something back to the family. You can always start your business later, but your brother, he needs that money. Now it's that simple." It's heartbreaking. I'm trapped in this impossible situation where no matter what I do, I'm the villain of the story. If I give them my savings, everything I've worked for will disappear, and I'll have to start from scratch. But if I refuse, my parents will see me as selfish, insensitive, and ungrateful. And let's be realistic. Even if I gave Cam the money, it wouldn't solve anything. He has shown time and time again that he can't be trusted with finances. I know deep down that giving him my savings won't help him get ahead. It would just be another temporary band-aid for a problem that's much deeper. So here I am, trapped between a rock and a hard place, wondering what the hell I should do next. My parents won't stop pressuring me, and Cam keeps acting like he hasn't done anything wrong anyway. I don't think this is my last update by any means. Update 3 today. I'm finally moving out of my parents' house. I don't care what happens next. Maybe this is the last update, I'm not sure. But I needed to vent completely, as you all know my brother. And honestly, my whole family has been horrible to me. And I've had enough. Mom and Dad not only forgave Cam and continue letting him stay in the house, but they also keep bothering me to pay more and give up my savings for my older brother, who supposedly has always looked out for me. What the hell do they mean by that? I'm sure of one thing. They're never going to change or come to their senses. Cam says he's finally taking life seriously and is ready to take responsibility. According to him, he's come up with a new business idea with a friend and just needs a small investment, which he'll pay me back as soon as the business takes off. The only thing that should take off would have to be his lazy ass from the couch and find a job. I don't understand how my parents always fall for this. He might be their golden child, but to me, he's nothing more than a selfish man who doesn't care about anything. But himself so unable to deal with this crap any longer, I decided to just get out and move out. Besides that, I'm going to keep this secret for now. I feel that if I tell my family right away, they'll do everything possible to stop me. I was looking at some studios and rooms for rent, but none fit my budget, to be honest. I need something I can afford, along with bills and food, and I still want to save what I can for my dream company. The good news finally came yesterday. A friend of a friend is an immigrant and is looking for cheap apartments to rent. I felt that if he agreed to be my roommate, we could afford a small studio and even share bills and food this morning. I finally met him and we discussed everything. The good news is that he already found a place, and what he needed was precisely a roommate. The place is a bit far from the university, but it doesn't matter. I can walk without problems. The emotional torment and blackmail I've suffered in my own house won't be there anymore tonight. I'm moving out in secret. I can't wait to see their faces when they discover I'm gone. I hope this works out. Please wish me luck. Guys, update 4. So here, update 4 is the promised update about what happened after I moved out in secret. Get ready. Because if you're on my side, you're going to get quite angry to recap after weeks enduring the madness at home. I decided to move out in secret. It wasn't something impulsive at all. I had been looking for a place discreetly for a while, making sure it was affordable, close enough to my work, and that it fit my university schedule. After considerable effort, I found the perfect place, thanks to a friend of a friend who was looking for a roommate. I didn't tell my family anything about. This I knew that if I even hinted at my plan, I would be bombarded with emotional manipulations and dramatic scenes. So I set everything in motion, silently making sure my move went unnoticed. I was packing little by little, keeping my things hidden in my car's trunk, waiting for the day I could leave without confrontations. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want the drama that would inevitably follow if I announced it. The day finally came. I had everything I needed. I signed the lease agreement and headed to my new place. It wasn't big or luxurious, but it was mine, and that was all I needed. The first night in my own space felt like taking a deep breath after months of suffocation. The silence Oh, it was beautiful. During the next few days, I continued my life as usual, going to work and university as if nothing had changed. I knew it wouldn't be long before they noticed I wasn't around, but I had no intention of revealing my move until it was absolutely necessary. Then the inevitable happened. My mother called me one night complaining about some problems at the house and casually slipping in a reminder about the rent increase I was supposed to contribute. She asked me where I was and why I hadn't been home in the last few days. I mean, she didn't seem to care that I wasn't around her, only seemed to care that my money was missing from around her. I could almost hear the expectation in her voice, the same assumption, as always, that I would continue carrying that financial burden. And that's when I announced the big news. I told her calmly, I no longer live there. There was silence. On the other end of the phone, so I added, enjoy the freeloaders now, the silence continued for a moment before she exploded. She couldn't believe I had left. Without telling anyone, she kept talking about how I was abandoning the family and leaving them in financial ruin. She asked me how I could be such an ungrateful and selfish son, especially after everything they had done for me. She made it clear that they had been counting on my money to keep the house afloat, and now I was simply leaving them when they needed me most. But it didn't affect me. I was already fed up with the emotional manipulations, fed up with the blackmail, and fed up with being the scapegoat. My mother tried to pressure me in every possible way, telling me that I had betrayed the family and that they didn't know how they were going to get by without my contribution, but I stood firm. I reminded her that I had been contributing more than my fair share for too long, and that it wasn't my fault that Cam had ruined his life. The following days were difficult for my family because I blocked my family from everywhere possible, even when they wrote me a message from a number I didn't know, saying that at least I could continue paying rent. Yeah, right, I was going to pay 2 rents when I could barely afford one, especially for my family who doesn't care much about what I do or don't do. Update 5, here I am. Again, update 5 writing because things have happened. If it had been something simple, I probably would have let it pass. But everything that happened with my brother and my parents deserves an update. I don't know if there are still many reading my story, but I think this is by far the most interesting post I've had to make. Or at least I think so, because I'm not the protagonist of this part of the story. At least not directly. My parents showed up at my door at night, and to make it even more dramatic, they did it when it was raining. I don't know if these people looked at the weather before visiting me to make their visit even more theatrical, or if they were just lucky. Although I don't know if I'd call it luck, because what happened was quite ugly there. They were standing at my door somewhat wet because they needed a place to stay, which seemed strange to me because they had a house, but I was wrong. I didn't ask and simply told them they couldn't stay there, besides everything we had been through. There's the small detail that my place is quite tiny, but that didn't worry them because they thought about taking my bedroom and me sleeping in the living room. Although my parents had a plan in their mind that didn't fit my apartment and much less what I wanted, which was not to live with them under any concept before closing the door, I asked them why they weren't in their own house. And what they told me was the most incredible thing in the world. My brother had kicked them out. According to what they told me, my mother discovered that my sister-in-law was stealing money from them. And the truth is, I believe it since I once caught her going through my room. And that pen excuse never sounded very believable to me. So they had a confrontation, and they gave them until the end of the week to leave. But instead of leaving, my brother got them some tickets to a show. And when they left, he changed the locks and left them outside. And the worst part is that the tickets were fake. They made the whole trip to the neighboring city to see the show only to be humiliated at the door. When someone told them they were fake when they returned to their house, they tried to open the door with their keys and saw that they didn't work. They knocked on the door but only received a response from my brother, better us than you. And he didn't respond to them again. Although they knocked on the door for an hour, my brother didn't open for them. That happened a few minutes before they showed up at my house. I asked them why they hadn't called the police, and my mother said that's what they were thinking of doing. But it was already late and they wanted to rest. That's why they had decided to come stay with me. I repeated to them that they couldn't stay there, and that in any case they could use the money I had been giving them to pay for a hotel for a few nights. They protested, but I told them I have a job and I've been paying my rent in your house for a long time. My brother, who isn't capable of keeping a job or keeping his little friend inside his pants before being financially stable, can live for free, and you demand more from me. It's time for you to go demand something from him. Thanks for visiting me, and then I closed the door. I know some will think I'm the bad guy for leaving my parents outside, but there's nothing I can do for them. It's true that I don't want them to live with me, but even if I had wanted to, there's no space for 4 people. It's been a few days since all this, and whether my parents get the house back or not, I'll tell you about it. Update 6, 1 month later. Update 6. My parents have recovered the house, but not in the state they lost it. And I don't just say that because now my brother and his family are no longer there, but because of all the damage and destruction they have suffered. This is what happens when you let irresponsible people who don't pay anything stay in your house. Besides some things that have been stolen from them, there's also the damage. There are painted walls, the upstairs bathroom flooded, which caused more damage, and there are also some broken windows. The only good news, at least for my nephews, is that Child Protective Services has taken them due to the evident lack of parental care. One of the children fell down the stairs and fractured an arm, added to the fact that they had taken the house by force. The situation of my brother and his wife doesn't look good at all. I don't know what will happen to them now, but that's how things are at the moment. My parents have refused to press charges against my brother, because according to what they've told other people, not me, he did all that because he was going through a lot. I have no words for my parents now. I think they deserve this and a little more too. Update 7. Update 7 for those who were worried about my nephews. This update is for you. My nephews have been taken to live with my parents. Child Protective Services asked me if I wanted or could take care of them for being family. But I think you can imagine what my answer was. I think my parents should have sued. At least my brother had a car in his name with that. They could have recovered part of the damages. But my parents can forgive anything my brother does. Even all this very different from how they treat the black sheep of the family. That is me, whom my parents have definitely cut off. It's ironic because, as I remember, it was the other way around. But that's the story my parents tell anyone who asks about me. Although honestly, I don't think many are believing them, knowing that my brother was the one who caused all the destruction. And as for my brother, he's living in that same car. It's not like the chances of finding someone who will let you stay at their house are very high when you've literally destroyed the last house they let you into.